you doing, YouTube? Matt with Massive Beer Reviews, back with a Massive Beer Editorial. Yes, another Massive Beer Editorial, still churning these suckers out. Kind of going super ad-lib on this one. It has been one of the busiest weekends of my life. Ran around everywhere, my work is crazy, and all kinds of stuff is going on, so I am coming into this one very ill-prepared, but what I'm going to do is what I think I can do pretty well from time to time. Let's shoot from the hip and just kind of riff on a subject. And today's editorial, today's subject I want to riff on is, how do I even want to phrase this? Being told what something is. It's a pretty bad title. I'll think of something better and put it in a marquee or something like that. Why am I talking about what I'm going to talk about? I'm talking about independent craft beer. I am talking about rate beer. I am talking about the Brewers Association. I am talking about big beer versus small beer. I'm talking about AB and Bev versus independent beer. Basically kind of taking a lot of the subjects that have been swirling around over the past couple weeks, kind of lumping into just a random kind of thought process and discussion on what's going on with that. So basically, most of you know out there, the huge conglomerates, the huge macro beer companies, your AB and Bevs in the world, kind of sat dormant for quite a while. There really wasn't much going on, and then all of a sudden, several weeks ago, AB and Bev pops off and clips Wicked Weed. They pick up Wicked Weed essentially at the same time Heineken takes over at Lagunitas, so you can kind of lump those two together. And everybody kind of freaked the fuck out. You know what I mean? And it was like, okay, here we go again. You know what I mean? Yada, yada, yada. This is happening. They're taking over again. At the same time, there was a finalized merger of the Sab Miller absorption into AB InBev International. So then they got control of a South American hop. So then everybody started freaking out about hop supplies again, how they're not going to be able to get hops because they control the South American hops, and they're going to root it into their pseudo craft brewers that they own now. And then everybody started freaking out, and then rate beer got purchased. Didn't get purchased outright. Basically, they got invested in. They got a good chunk of their company bought, I guess you would say, by a marketing company that is essentially controlled by AB InBev. And then everybody freaked out. You know what I mean? And there's a couple different ways people freaked out on this one. You know what I mean? It was like, it was the pitchforks in the fire. You know what I mean? Oh, damn AB InBev and everybody to hell, which I can get. You know what I mean? I understand not wanting them to do what they do. Sometimes I might come off a little bit of an apologist for them. I'm actually not. I'm just very kind of the person that likes to argue the other side of a story just to kind of bring perspective. But everybody freaked out in that aspect. And then there's the combination of that and then the rate beer thing. And when that all went down, then it was... the combination of the hops thing and the combination of the rate beer thing, then it was like, okay, we're being hit on all sides. You know what I mean? We're having, breweries trying to get in through the beer door. We're having these breweries, these macro breweries kind of get in through the home brewing door with AB InBev controlling the hops, pushing them to their brewers or pushing it to, Northern Brewer that they own now, which is a home brew company they purchased several months ago. And then they're also trying to get in through the influence door, which would be your rate beer, and stuff like that. And I mean, that in itself, it's obviously a scripted kind of calculated way for them to kind of get their influence things. I don't want to say get their foot in the door, because I don't think they're trying to actually get their foot in the door of craft beer. I don't think they're actually trying to be like fake people out at this point anymore. Even though that's what, I'm not saying that's not part of their plan. They're just trying to be influential in certain areas where they can dictate traffic. You know what I mean? Where they can dictate, how people are going to move. You know what I mean? That's more what it is, rather than trying to just straight up dupe people. And like I said, they're going to market themselves like independent. But at the same time, it's more about being influential. So, you know what I mean? Like, the biggest one for me was rate beer. That was the one that kind of made me think about things more deeply. I mean, rate beer, I never use the site, actually. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It just, the way it's functioned, its format, how it's laid out, the whole nine. It's never really been for me. More of a beer advocate guy. Not that I even use that often, but if I'm ever kind of inquiring into beer and I'm looking for something, I 99.9% of the time I'm going to go to Beer Advocate. It's the way it's laid out, how it's formatted, the whole nine. It just works better in my brain. Rate beer is kind of, I think it's the OG one. I'm almost positive it is. But it's a bit more of an analytical kind of, it's more, I don't want to say nerdy, but it's a little more stuffy for me. A little bit more kind of, not to make fun of homebrewers, it's more homebrewy. You know what I mean? It's a little not as polished. Let's put it that way. So I don't know why. You know what I mean? They kind of want to go through that door. They still carries weight. It still has cachet with a lot of people, and where I sit and where I think a lot of you out there sit because you're actually on YouTube watching someone talk about beer, so you're one of the kind of nerdiest of nerdy people. We don't really use those sites as much, and not only that, we just kind of know this information. We know that AB InBev is doing this, and Sabmel is doing that, and Heineken's doing this. You know what I mean when it comes to beer. So I don't think it really means much to us. I think it's more for the middle of the road consumer who actually carries most of the weight when it comes to this stuff. They have most of the money. But where it starts to get a little bit, I don't know, weird for me. And I guess this is really why I kind of started this conversation, is now people are using, not in a bad way, I'm not saying in a bad way, people are using this to their own, they're twisting it to use it in their own way. Today, the Brewers Association came out with a logo that they're putting on all their beers. That denote that this beer, or that you can opt into using, let's put it that way. You can opt in to use this if you qualify as far as their criteria is concerned. If you qualify, then you can take this stamp and you can put it on your beers. Very similar in a sense to what the Trappist breweries do, or even the Belgian breweries do with their Belgian stamp or the Trappist stamp. Kind of saying, okay, this is a legitimate Trappist beer. This is a legitimate Belgian-born beer. This assures you that you're buying an authentic product. The Brewers Association stamp, I get it, but it's who draws the line? I believe their definition of the line is, I forget. I heard it the other day, and I'm going off base thought here. Like I said, pretty ill prepared on this. Just kind of wanted to riff on something real quick, but I believe it was. They draw the line at where that, if the brewery is bought, because let me rewind it for a second. There's breweries that are partially bought by, there's breweries that are partially bought by, like, investment companies, like Dogfish Head, or like some, like, outside influence, like money comes into that brewery from an investor, you know what I mean? That is not necessarily a big beer conglomerate. And the question that was posed, and again, I forget where I read this or heard this, is that, like, where does the line draw? And what was said was, the line is basically drawn where, between independent and non-independent breweries, is where the parenting company has that kind of major overall influence to kind of funnel, advertising resources and whatnot that normally other places can't. There is, it was, it was, I was listening to Good Beer Hunting, it's a podcast, and it was Rob Todd from Allagash was speaking about it, and it was more, he was speaking about how it's like, the investment company that put money into Dogfish Head, they can't really funnel resources as far as raw materials and marketing influence, in a way that really an AB InBev or a Constellation or whatnot, or a Sabmel can really do that. They're so powerful they can do those things, and that's where the line is drawn. Is that a proper place to draw the line? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Does this stamp really carry much weight? I don't know. Does it for the beer nerd? I don't think so. I think, again, if you're in if you're in this world to where you're watching YouTube videos and really thinking about these things, I think you're in deep enough to where you know what's craft beer and what's not. But at the same time, a lot of people actually don't know. You know what I mean? I forget where I was sitting today. I was actually eating lunch with people from out of town. You know what I mean? I was in town for my job and I was working with them. We went to lunch and we just started talking about beer and they just kind of like, oh, you like beer? And I was like, yeah, I usually sandbag that stuff or just don't even talk about it. And they started talking about, I like this, I like that. And then, and they actually said, like, oh, I don't like Bud, you know what I mean? I like better beer than Bud. And I like, they started to shout out, I like Blue Moon and Shock Top and all. And I was like, well, that company's owned by this company's owned by that. So there's a hefty group of people that believe they're in a beer that actually don't know that. So does the stamp make sense? Sure, it does. Will it work? I'm sure it will on a certain portion. But I think it's more of a badge or an advertisement, or not an advertisement, maybe a badge of, like, I don't know if you want to use the word solidarity, but it's more of like a symbol. I think it is more than and more of a Trappist thing. The Trappist one actually always made sense to me because a lot of people out there had a hard time distinguishing what was a Trappist beer or not. A lot of people still think a lot of beers are Trappist beers, where a lot of people are like, oh, Guten Carlus, or what I mean. Big one is St. Bernardus. They think those are Trappist beers. They're not. I think that made more sense. But is it a good thing? Sure. But at the same time, I also think it's more of a kind of just a way to kind of separate the industry now. Because I talked about this briefly in some of the other editorials. The word craft beer is just getting too muddled now, and I think that's why they're going for independent craft brewers. They're trying to create a new kind of line, a new kind of topic, a new kind of cubicle they can fit more specific beers in, because everybody's so kind of, the word craft beers is so open for interpretation now. I think the word independent craft brewer is just them trying to kind of just force that word into the vernacular of the people that are in the beer now. Is it a good or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing to actually kind of to create that word, but the badge itself, I'm not sure. I honestly don't know how far that's going to work or whatnot. Now, for the rate beer thing, let's get back to that. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because it's similar to that badge. Beer Advocate came out with a post saying that they're going to create a kind of database on their site so you can easily disseminate and delineate the macro-owned, the big conglomerate-owned properties from the non. That is a little bit more agenda-based. Beer Advocate is a direct, immediate competitor of Rate Beer. So they have more of a stake in that game than just independent craft beer versus macro. Now, Beer Advocate and Rate Beer does not exist without beer. So I'm not saying that's a bigger issue. What I'm saying is you have two essential entities fighting each other, as opposed to the whole craft beer community versus the macro community. I'm not trying to say that's more important than beer itself. But what I'm saying is that is a direct, that's Pepsi versus McDonald's. You know what I mean? That's a direct Pepsi versus McDonald's. Pepsi versus Coke. McDonald's versus Burger King, whatever you want to call it. Direct competitor. So to me, them creating that database coming fresh off the heels of the Rate Beer investment, I guess you would say, is more marketing for them as opposed to genuine, like, we want you as the people to know the difference. They could have done that much, much sooner. They could have sat there and be like, okay, we're going to tell you now. You know what I mean? We started this years ago. You click on this button, you know if it's macro or non-macro beer. They only decided to do this, days, minutes after Rate Beer's acquisition or investment, or whatever you want to call it. That to me is a little bit more kind of like, okay, we want to ride this negative wave and then turn people towards our site and gain more viewers and stuff like that. Are people going to use that on their site? Sure. I mean, it can get a little bit kind of muddled out there now with so many breweries kind of bought your list. Even now, I'm like, wait a minute, who owns that or whatever? So does it serve a purpose? Sure. In the end, is it really going to do much as far as steering people towards beer? I don't know. Again, like that middle of the ground, that middle road person that is into beer. Maybe I'm too far removed from that section, but I don't know if they care. Do you know what I mean? Or what? Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know if any of that's going to help. But I guess the end part of it is, does it matter? I think it does matter in the end. And I'm really contradicting myself here. In my brain, it makes sense. A lot of stuff, do I think it helps? Do I think as a whole, or as individually, do you know what I mean, that they're going to make a huge impact, or that they really matter individually? No. Do I think they matter as, it all matters as a whole? Yes. Like I said, it can be very kind of middle of the road when it comes to, like, you know, big beer versus small beer. A little bit kind of like, who cares, vote with your dollar. I genuinely love beer. Do you know what I mean? I want the small, creative, independent kind of win. I absolutely do. I can't help myself. I have to argue the other side just to bring balance to arguments. It's just like a weird fault of mine. So, in the end, I think it's all a good thing. I think it's all jabs versus a heavyweight fighter. You know what I mean? If anybody's into boxing, I know like 9 people on this earth are now. But you know, in actual boxing, for those that don't know or watch MMA, you can have a big, powerful guy, and you just chop him down from his highest treetop, chop him down to size over many, many, many minutes with just small jabs. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I believe a lot of this when it comes to what the Brewers Association, what, albeit a little bit more kind of self-serving, what Beer Advocate has done, and what a lot of these breweries are trying to do as far as kind of letting it be known that they're independent of financial influence from large conglomerates. Singularly, there are small drips in the pond, but I think over time they really do help. It's just, again, I think they help, and I think the people that give a shit, but at the same time, I'm not sure how far-reaching those effects are going to go with the general public, who essentially drives this. You know what I mean? Like, a super nerds who are into beer. We buy the nth degree edges of the beer world. It's the middle road consumer that really drives this boat as far as finances go. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's going to help. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know what's going on. But at the same time, I do think it's a positive thing. And yeah, it's a weird one for me. Because I want to, like, I think there's a better way for craft beer, independent craft beer, to kind of separate itself from, you know, the huge conglomerate macro beer. I just don't know what it is. I feel like I do. I feel like there's somewhere in my brain I can come up with that idea. But I feel like there's a better way than a stamp, and I feel like there's a better way than a website with self-serving purposes kind of putting together a macro machine, you know what I mean, to tell you what's what. Rather than tell you what's what. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not something we do. Maybe it's just education across the board when it comes to what's good and what's bad. Rather than saying, you can't like this, you have to like that. It should be more just like, try this, try that. Learn the difference between what's good and what's bad. And educate, you know what I mean? And teach the people what's good and what's bad. You know what I mean? And again, beer's, you know, some people say it's not artistic. I think it leans more artistic than science. That's just me, but you know, it's not as cut and dry as 1 + 1 = 2. So to say something, this is good and this is bad, some people's gonna be like, well, you say that's good, but I don't like that kind of taste. What I'm saying is what's well made, you know what I mean, as opposed to faux, as opposed to fake. You know what I mean? We all know, you know, McDonald's is shit. You know what I mean? But the Mick fancy restaurant, you see them all around. It's like someone opens a restaurant and they try too hard to be fancy. They forget the food. They just try to look good instead of being good. There's a lot of breweries that do that, even small breweries that try to do that. You know what I mean? Just educate people about what's good about beer, what's bad about beer, why this beer is a good beer, why that beer is a bad beer, what goes into it, and what the ramifications are of purchasing, you know what I mean, like big beer versus small beer. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the route. I don't know, but it's a cool. It just got me thinking about what do we need to be told? Do we need to be told these things, or do we need to tell people, educate people who want to be educated? You don't want to be a fucking crazy preaching religious bonkers person trying to convert everybody into beer, but people that are interested in beer, rather than going, this beer's shit, this beer's good, don't drink this, you should drink that, exposing people to good, and then exposing them purposely to bad, but not saying it's bad, being like, hey, drink this, do you like this, yes or no? You don't like it, why don't you like it? Oh, you don't like it because it tastes like this, well, that's why you don't like this. Be like, okay, try this. Oh, you like this. Do you like? Why do you like it? What makes you think you like it? What do you taste? You like it because of this, and this is why this is good. This is why this is bad. Kind of like, I know it's a very generic way to put it, but that's the thing. Do I think those badges and those machines, those macro machine fucking thing on Beer Advocate, do I think they're a negative? No. Do I think they're the answer? No. I think it's more of an education thing. It's more of just being non-douchey. I'm pretty douchey, so I need to heed my own warning. Being non-douchey, educating people, being open-minded, pushing for people to try things and to learn rather than just tell people what to like and what not to like. So yeah, there you go. It's a little bit just of a little riff on some thoughts I had. I thought it'd be a fun thing to do. Don't think I butchered it all too badly, especially because I literally didn't think about doing it until 5 minutes before I sat down. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you struck up a thought process of yours and you want to talk about it, and then down there you'll write stuff and then we'll talk about it. It'll take me a week to respond because it takes me that long to get back to shit. My life is so hectic, especially this time of the year. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, somewhere in between, right down there. You know what I mean? Open dialogue. Let's get this conversation going. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me I'm rambling too much. Tell me I'm drinking old stock too early and I should let it sit. I should have definitely done that, but you got to try it new to know what it is old. Yeah. Get back at me. Let me know if these are still interesting you. Let me know if you're still kind of digging them. Let me know subjects that you want me to talk about. I'm writing them down, the ones that do. So we'll get to them eventually. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this editorial. Hopefully you're enjoying independent craft beer that you found independently by yourself. And hopefully see you next time. Cheers.